comes to be. Hello, I'm Brian Unger. I'm Professor Lou Bloomfield.
From the drawing board to the assembly line, it's how the ordinary is actually extraordinary. Today on Some Assembly Required, cheese, shoes, and pianos.
Well, it's just after 6 in East Central Wisconsin and Manitowoc County, and the Jersey cows are coming into the barn to get milked, because that is chapter 1 in the story of cheddar cheese.
So what gives cheddar cheese its unique flavor?
Well, to answer that, we've got to get to the building block of cheddar cheese, which is milk. And that process starts early with these ladies. What's the secret again?
Well, you can just stroke it until you feel it's getting plump. Think of it as a tube of toothpaste, and you're just working it out.
To make cheese, any cheese, you need milk. Now, these Jersey cows produce more milk per weight than any other cow. But to make good-tasting cheese, it's not the quantity, it's the quality of the milk that matters most.
This milk is just seconds old, and it's an amazing liquid. The fats, those are cream, they're floating around little droplets, and also most of the proteins, what are known as casein, are little particles, and it's those particles that we're going to knock out of solution to make cheese.
Fats and proteins, they're the main ingredients of cheddar cheese, so what goes into making them is key. That's why on Kolb Farm, these Jersey girls eat a diet of mostly grass. The fat in grass, yes, grass has fat, adds complexity to the cheddar flavor.
Which ones are the back and which ones are the front? I'm sorry, sweetheart. We'll get going here. Oh. Easy, girl. Can I do this one, Mike? She okay?
She just came off.
Oh, she just came off. Okay, right. I don't want to milk a cow twice. That would be awkward.
All this fresh raw milk is delivered nearby to Hennings Cheese Factory. This is where it begins its cheddaring journey.
We are in Kiel, Wisconsin, and Carrie Hennings is a third-generation master cheesemaker. Your family's been making cheddar since 1914.
That's right.
Are you ready to make some cheese?
Let's make some cheese.
Okay.
We're ready to make some cheese, but this milk isn't. We need to pasteurize it first. The milk quickly heats up to 160 degrees and then cools back down through this maze of piping. Now's the time to turn our milk into cheddar. And we start things off with something aptly called starter culture.
This bacteria, Lactococcus lacti.
Lactococcus cocci.
Lacti!
During this, the fermentation process, the Lactococcus lacti, yeah, that, it breaks down the milk's sugar, or lactose, into lactic acid. And the more acid that's formed now, the tangier our cheddar will be down the road.
How much of this do you want to pour in?
Add it on. You're ready.
I'm ready.
Next, we add some color.
Now, this is the annatto. Is that what you call it? Annatto. And this is what gives the cheddar its color.
Correct.
Natural vegetable dye, so to speak.
Yes, it is.
But it's from a seed, annatto seed. Yeah. Hello. Making cheese is like being in a prison. The sounds, at least.
Okay, our milk is fermenting, but it can't curdle into cheese without something called rennet.
Rennet is an enzyme, a biological catalyst that kicks off chemical reactions. In this case, the rennet is attacking those little droplets of protein known as casein that are suspended in normal milk, breaking those things open and allowing them to coagulate to form the curd that will eventually become cheddar cheese. Here we go. Rennet.
As the milk churns, rennet causes the protein to drop out from the milk, taking fat along with it. The protein and fat will form more and more curds. The leftover liquid is called the whey.
It's real easy. Sure it is, Jerry.
At this point, here's what you're not seeing. The microscopic mechanics as the enzymes and bacteria keep working to break down the molecules.
And that's the curd right there. Right. It's real like soft, spongy. Very soft. There's lots of whey in it. Could I eat that if I wanted to? You certainly could. I mean, I'm not going to now, but if I wanted to. Oh.
Yeah, still not cheddar. So to go from spongy to hard, we have to squeeze out the liquid so the curds can bond together.
Now I'm just basically raking the bottom of this tank, pushing the curd against the side of these stainless steel walls. Yeah, because I see the curd is on this side and curd on that side, and a river of whey. That was in the Bible, wasn't it? The reason for separating the whey from the curds is because most of the flavor development is going to be in these curds. The proteins and the fats will break down, and voila, aromas and flavors. The whey, just a bystander. So you got to get the whey out.
This is literally known as cheddaring. The process alone takes these workers 10 hours to make 12,000 pounds of curds.
12 to 15 seconds, we're going to hold it. And then I'm going to give it a vigorous little...
It takes a lot of time and manual pressure, but little by little, progress.
Right now, these are much harder than when we started. Like these are basically really starting to clump.
The whey is drained, but there's still too much liquid for the curds and the flavor to form properly.
You get an idea, look at that. How much moisture is still inside these curds. So you can just see it draining out.
We've got to expel the rest of this liquid, so we divide these banks of curds into smaller sections.
So we cut these once, and we stacked them. Now we roll them over. 30 pounds? This feels a lot heavier than 30 pounds. Bad curd.
Then we stack them again.
Well, these hold together much nicer now.
And again. And again.
Cheddaring is hard work, man. How many times do you do this? Now this is very heavy. We've gone from 2 to 3, and we go to 4. We're still not done. Going to 5.
So here's the secret to the cheddaring process. Using the pressure of the curd's own weight.
No real need to go to the gym, huh? You guys just don't need to.
The raking and stacking got most of the liquid out of the curds, and the curds are pretty firm.
You can eat it right now. It's fairly buoyant.
At this point, the enzymes haven't been reacting inside the cheese long enough to create that good cheddar flavor, and they're still too moist to bond together to form the cheese. That's where 120 pounds of salt comes in.
Like so? Put it on a little heavier now. You notice how I get it on a real light coating, a real light dusting over the cheese. Yeah, so it's taken you 23 years to learn how to do this. Now, Kerry, why salt? Probably one of the most important things is flavor. Cheese would not taste very good without the salt. It's important biologically because it slows that bacteria growth down. Those bacteria are really working. You need to start slowing that bacteria process down. And then also expelling more of that moisture yet out of that curd. So we're drying that curd down even further.
Very important. We have to cover each curd with salt.
Now, we have to look for these lumps, Kurt. We have to break these apart. So salt...
It's Brian. Did you say Kurt? Or curd?
I said Kurt. Brian! It's okay, Bob.
To make sure we get an even coat, we salt the curds 3 times. We constantly mix the batch as we go along.
I can just hear the American Heart Association moaning right now, man.
Salted cheddar curds, the kind they make at Hennings, are a snack here in Wisconsin. But to make blocks of cheese, we need to take our curds and keep on going.
These curds are pushed along this chute, are fed up through this steel piping system here, and are put in, what are they called? Daisies? Daisy hoops.
Now we're packing about 34 pounds worth of curds into this wheel shape, but there's still some excess liquid, or whey, so we do another round of stacking.
Surprisingly, way more manual than I thought. You know, I figured there'd be like a machine that would do this, but this is what Wisconsin handmade cheddar is. We're doing it. I'll never take another cheeseburger for granted again.
We're using 2,000 pounds of force to squeeze the remaining whey out of the curds so that they can bond together and start forming inside the cheddar wheel. And after just 15 minutes of pressing, the curds are already becoming a single solid mass.
This cloth right here is just cheesecloth. Yes. It also extracts moisture from the curd. Yes. Now we place cotton over the top. This does the same thing, only moisture, right? Right. However, you throw these away when you're done? No, we reuse these. Oh, you put them in the laundry? Yep. So you're like the Al Gore of the cheese world.
And after 24 hours, our cheddar, all 4,000 pounds of it, is as dry as it's going to get.
Can we flip it out and take a look at it? Okay. Oh, already, that looks like cheddar to me. Still needs a little more time to finish fusing together. Can we taste some of this? All right, we can do that. All right, so you lead the way. All right.
At this, the day-old mark, the curds are extremely soft and there's not much flavor.
This is just a day old. Cheers. Cheers. Very squeaky. Yeah. Squeaky. Because it's like kind of rubbery. And it still tends to fall apart quite easily.
It's technically cheddar, but it doesn't taste like it, especially compared to a piece that's been aging for a month.
Oh, see, right away you can just tell how it holds together. That's good cheese. That's good cheddar. Yeah. That's real good. Oh, I'm sorry. What's up?
Being the master cheesemaker that he is, Kerry can tell very early on how his cheddar's going to come out, simply by tasting it.
Once it's been aged for about 30 days, I can start saying, well, nope, it's not good enough. We're going to move it out as a mild or a medium flavor cheese. Then we'll look at it at 3 months old, 6 months old, and again at a year old. Now, can you tell just from tasting a cheese, say at 3 months, that it's just not going to make the 18-month haul? A good percentage of the time I can.
The enzymes and bacteria continue to ferment inside. This is the aging process, and that creates the distinct sharp flavor. The longer the cheddar ages, the sharper it gets.
And this has been aged how long?
18 months.
This is 18 months. 18 months?
18 months.
Wow. This is sharp cheddar.
Cheddar is aged anywhere from 3 months to 9 years. Once Kerry approves it, the cheddar gets packaged. At Hennings, they wrap smaller pieces of cheddar, but giant blocks are their specialty. These blocks can weigh as much as 1,000 pounds, which makes waxing them a pretty tough job. So why dip the cheddar in wax? Well, it allows gases inside to escape and the cheese to breathe. It's like a layer of skin. It prevents the cheese from getting moldy or drying out.
It's going to be tricky because you're going to feel the wax kind of move on you.
Yeah, a little bit. Did I wreck the wax?
A little bit. Notice I was not on mine.
Okay.
It's just something I'm used to.
That's right.
Yeah. I know how to work with it.
Why you gotta be so hurtful? Right here.
The cheddar will continue to age,
You're going to need a little more wax in that.
and the flavor will continue to grow sharper and sharper every day.
You can just kind of hug it.
Hug it. Hug it. Hug the cheese. Hug the cheddar.
All right. Fill the box.
If you do this correctly, you'll have no wax on your hands.
Right. You're right.
I did this incorrectly.
They seem basic enough when you lace them up, but my running shoes are really size 12 feats of engineering. They've got to be strong enough to absorb the impact of running, yet comfortable enough to give the foot flexibility and speed.
Well, we're in Lawrence, Massachusetts at the research and development part of New Balance shoes. How are you? Here we're going to get really inside the shoe, get into the science.
We want to find out, how do you build a running shoe that cushions and stabilizes your foot? With every stride, feet, ankles, knees, hips, and torso must absorb an enormous shock. New Balance has designed running shoes that can handle all of that, and it started with founder William Riley, who created a three-pronged approach to the insole.
What inspired him, Sean?
Well, why don't we bring in our visual aid and
A visual aid? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he took inspiration from the chicken.
It's a shoe factory and a chicken farm. Who knew?
Chickens have incredible stability despite their mass that it's above their foot. And basically, he took inspiration from the fact that four-pronged foot, similar to a triangular pyramidal shape, provided a great deal of stability to the chicken.
You know, we are theoretically less stable than chickens.
That's right.
You know this chicken has an agent?
Well, the New Balance sole has come a long way, and so has the R&D.
Pretty stable.
Today, it's all about figuring out which part of the foot absorbs the most impact.
Okay, Brian, let's get started. Let's get this into your shoe.
Okay, is this going to hurt?
No.
Sean's going to analyze the dynamics of my foot using a digital insole.
I have a feeling that this is going to be hooked up to a computer.
960 sensors on this insole send signals to a computer, which then pools all of that data.
What exactly are we trying to measure here?
We're trying to measure the pressure that is basically being distributed from your foot contacting the ground.
You're hitting on the outside of your heels and sweeping across and leaving on the ball of your foot. And because you're in the air a lot of the time, you're not putting any pressure on your feet. And then when you do land, you put tremendous pressure on your feet. So your weight, in effect, is surging up and down.
Right, well, what I'm clearly seeing right now, you're clearly a heel 4-foot striker.
I'm not alone. Most runners push off from their 4 feet and land on their heels. That's why New Balance designs many of its soles with extra cushioning in these areas. But cushioning must be balanced with another important function of the sole, stability.
If you put too much cushioning in, he won't be able to keep his foot from rolling over, right? He'll pronate.
Exactly, it's a balancing act. If there's too much cushioning, too much deformation, if the material's actually deforming too much, your foot's going to start to become very wobbly.
I think we should move this forward because I'm starting to sweat a little. And starting to smell.
It's tricky to find the right mix between cushioning and stability. And that's where computer-aided design, or CAD, comes in.
Matt Dunbar is a senior CAD designer here at New Balance. Matt, how are you, sir? In that design, you were getting feedback from some runners who are testing it or from somewhere else in R&D here. How would you change it here?
Let's say the feedback from the wear testers was that maybe these holes are too big, and I would come into the model here and I could access these hole features and actually change the diameter of those holes. Let's make them smaller.
So once you've made a change like this, how do you realize it?
Take them over to the 3D printer.
3D. Come on, this is exciting, you guys.
All right.
There's no paper in this printer. Instead, there's powder. As the sole gets scanned onto the powder, a binding agent acts like ink and hardens the powder into the thin layers of the sole.
We are raising the build right now. And
So in there is the 3D representation of what we designed on the computer. But how is that hard and the surrounding surface all like, you know?
it's a plaster material, and
Okay.
it lays down a binder. So it's like putting water in kitty litter, and it just hardens in thin layers.
Once the sole hardens, we'll dust off the excess powder.
It's like a blizzard in there. It's like Studio 54 in 1980.
and a sole is born. This prototype will be used to make thousands more. That's pretty cool. So, we've given our shoe a sole, and clearly our job is only half done. It's time to connect with the oh-so-critical upper. The upper is highly designed, it's painstakingly engineered, and almost entirely assembled by hand.
We're in the cutting room in Skowhegan, Maine. This is just one of 5 plants they have for making New Balance running shoes, right?
Yes.
5?
At this one manufacturing plant, New Balance will crank out more than 300,000 pairs of shoes in a year. And it all starts with a big piece of pigskin, which will be cut up and sewn together to build the upper.
So we're basically making this piece here and this piece here.
They have to make thousands of these pieces every day, and this one, called the I-Row, is just one of 29 individual parts that forms a single upper.
And this is just a big, what would you call this thing exactly?
High-tech cookie cutter.
High-tech cookie cutter. I like that.
It is.
It's very technical.
It is. High-tech cookie cutter.
All right, clear. There you go. We're on our way to making an upper.
When the cutting is done, it's time to put the puzzle pieces together.
So Angel is assembling the upper. How many pieces are you putting down on one of these templates here, Angel? 6 pieces. Basically, you just lower that lid down and the needle just attacks, and you really don't have to do any other sewing.
But there's one part of the sewing process that requires some very special attention.
This is the end department over here, and on my left are the ends on the left, and on my right, the ends for the right. They're going to be eventually put in like so. Shelley Guido. Shelley Guido. Shelley just married a Frenchman. The key here is not to sew over the end part. No hands, Shelley. What do you think of that one?
No.
No, let's take this off.
Hit it twice. Keep it going. Hit it again.
Seriously? There's a tiny,
That would be
tiny
perfect.
thread over the reflective there. Now that would come back to Shelley here today and probably result in some very stern discipline. Shelley's obviously a lot faster at this than I am. And voila.
Yay.
This upper still looks more like a kiddie placemat than the top of a shoe, so we're going to have to give it some more shape. For that, we need, you guessed it, more sewing.
On this floor at New Balance, this is like the sewing room from hell. Angel graciously attempted to show me a few things, and I've actually said I can't do it. It's so hard what you do. Moving these things across this needle so fast. This part, at least, is done by hand.
Right.
Now, the other Angel downstairs, because we have 2 Angels, is doing it in an automated process with a computer. What's the difference?
No machine can put these together like you do.
Faster, 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 faster.
You want to try one? You can try one.
All right,
I can show you.
I'll try it, but what if I screw
Okay.
it up?
I can fix it. You're going to match the notches up.
Match up the notches.
And lift this up
Lift this up.
and stick along the bottom.
Stick it on the bottom. Here we go, folks. Oh, yes! Now, if you get this pair of running shoes, I'm very sorry. That is called some more assembly required.
Uppers that have been sewn properly are almost ready to marry with their soles. But before the 2 parts merge together, the upper goes through a rigorous fitting process.
We have sewn the snot out of these things. We got stitching on the bottom, we got the tongues in, we got the backs on, and now we're going to steam them like dinner rolls because that makes them more pliable and easier to work with and loosens up some of the glues in here. Jai is the man who runs this whole place here. Can I just grab that one out of here? Oh yeah, nice and toasty. Right now this feels like a shoe that's been worn by a really sweaty person for like 10 days.
Now, from here we go to the toe laster, and that's where the toe of a New Balance sneaker really takes shape. A toe laster applies glue to the underside of the shoe and then pulls the leather down over the toe, giving it a smooth, tight fit. Now that was all done with pressure and glue. Right. Any excess pigskin is sanded away. And finally, it's time to attach the sole to the upper. We have the sole of our shoe, and this is what we designed at Research and Development in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And these are manufactured in China. They're shipped up here, and this is where these soles meet their uppers. Like so.
That glow that you're seeing is an incandescent radiant heat system activating hot spray glue. That glue was applied about 40 minutes ago to the other side of the factory to the sole of the shoe.
Once the glue's activated, they'll press the upper into the sole and then pop it in this machine over here, which does what human hands can't. Tremendous uniform pressure will bind the shoes together forever.
Before any shoes are shipped, there's one last step. A final check from the inspector.
Well, if you ever wanted to know who was the last person to touch a New Balance running shoe before they went on your feet, Wanda the lacer. What are you looking for?
I check the sizes and make sure they're printed normally, legible. I make sure all the stitching is done well.
Look good?
They look great.
But the real test for these New Balance running shoes is not in a factory, it's on the track.
You ready, Brian? Blue. It's a good day to run. I hope I don't have the ones you made. I hope I don't have the ones you made. Let's race. I'll race you, Professor.
Separate parts assembled to withstand up to 25 tons of tension. Wow. The piano, an engineering marvel. How do you get pitch-perfect sound from wood, wire, and tons of tension? It all starts in a wood shop in Queens, New York.
At Steinway Piano Factory, the wood comes in looking like this. Now, there are 5 kinds of wood in all. This is maple, and this forms the outer shell of the piano, or the rim.
To make the horseshoe shape of a concert rim, its wood has to be strong and flexible at the same time. Maple has that strength, but not the flexibility. So, the solution? Use thin planks of wood that will bend, but not break. A single plank is too flimsy, so they stack the planks, using a whole lot of glue to keep them together.
How important is it, Chris, that all 21 feet of this continuous piece of maple have glue on every part of it?
Very important.
That's why you dab sort of here and there, just to make sure that every part of this wood is covered?
Any section that they see that could be a dry spot, they try and fill it in.
In the end, it's a 16-plank stack, flexible and ready to be bent into a rim. Creating the gentle curve of the rim requires a combined effort of carefully choreographed moves and sheer brute force. They've got just 14 minutes to do this before the glue sets, so there is no room for error.
So every time he tightens, you guys push a little. Wow, sounds like an old ship at sea at this point. That is a sharp turn there. I mean, that's practically 90 degrees.
This is the tricky part.
Now that is the treble curve.
Yes.
That's the most pronounced curve in a piano
This is
rim.
where the tough part comes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, is there a danger of the wood cracking at this point?
Yes.
The rim will stay locked like this for 24 hours, and then it'll be placed in a climate-controlled room to dry out. So once we got the rim prepped, we can finally get to the other 11,999 parts to this piano. Steinway is sprawling over 400,000 square feet, with 500 people churning out 5,000 pianos a year.
That's all right. Looking for a
Off
job?
the line there.
With me is Director of Quality Bob Berger.
Yep.
Here was the line.
It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good.
It's a nice.
It's good. I made sure I gave a little room.
Yeah, you did.
The outside of the piano is almost assembled, but we still have to make the inside.
Time to focus on the interior of the piano, and nothing is more important or more integral in producing the rich, amplified sound of a piano than a soundboard. Sight here, which is pretty amazing.
Soundboards are made from spruce, and their grains are carefully matched to produce a consistent sound.
That doesn't match at all. You're right.
To create sound, the soundboard must vibrate. That's why Steinway uses such a specific kind of wood.
Why do they use spruce in this soundboard? Because it's a very fine grain, very straight grain wood, and it's also wonderfully elastic, so it vibrates up and down beautifully many times. Now, that vibration, is that key to sort of producing that Steinway sound? It is, because the soundboard is the voice of the piano. Look here. This is a completed soundboard, and look how elastic. Oh yeah, that's really very elastic. And as it bounces up and down, in sync with the strings, it launches the sound. It pushes on the air back and forth and creates the sound of the piano. I'd rather be up here. Yeah.
The spruce slats are matched, aligned, and glued together. Now the soundboard gets cut down to its final shape.
This inside scary, because if I go fast, then I really do cut into the board itself. Yeah, you don't want to cut into the board. No. Try not to be distracted, too, by someone talking in your ear. I'll do my best. Well, we have a finished soundboard. Nice work, Lou.
Before it can be placed into the piano case, the soundboard gets two important attachments. On one side, ribs for structural support. On the other,
a very important piece, of course, the bridge. And the bridge is installed inside little holes on the back of the soundboard.
The strings attach to the bridge, and when they vibrate, so does the bridge and the soundboard. At this point, piano making becomes an art form.
This is a highly skilled part on the assembly for this soundboard.
This is probably our most highly skilled job in the factory. Certainly one of the most highly skilled. The marks here require precision because they represent the scale of the piano. Now Hassan is beginning to drill the hole that will be required for each of the bridge pins that will be inserted.
Hassan, you drill a mean hole. 15-degree angle just by sight and touch. That's pretty impressive. It requires a very steady hand.
There are variations sometimes in the grain angle, which a experienced woodworker can account for when he's cutting the notches or doing this type of work that a machine can't recognize. A well-experienced craftsman can identify small differences in grain and account for them as he's doing his work.
Here at Steinway & Sons factory in Queens, New York, our piano case has been built and the soundboard has been crafted. The soundboard responds to the string vibrations and produces sound, but it's this 300-pound iron plate that keeps the piano from imploding in the first place.
In the biggest of the grand pianos, the concert grand, every string has about 200 pounds of tension. There are about 230 strings. That's 23 tons of tension. Yeah! So it has to be made of iron. Otherwise, this whole cabinet would just collapse. Right, it'll go from being a concert grand to a baby grand. Okay.
With the iron plate bolted down, we're finally ready for the strings. All 230 of them.
Well, I am standing here with a master piano stringer, Ben McIntosh. Hey, Ben.
How are you?
Good. I think I'm holding in my left hand here what appear to be the strings for the notes that have lower pitch. And I'm going to wrap that one like this, and then bend it around the second one.
Yeah.
Also, I've been told by the brass here not to touch the iron plates, because when you get your fingerprints on them, it actually stains like you stain a new penny.
Hooking the strings on this end is easy. Securing them at the other end requires a master.
And that's a job I just can't do.
No, I don't think Bob would like that.
With all these sharp wires to handle, it's a dangerous process.
If it slips out of your hand, it can actually rip your skin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So this is how you gear up for this?
Yes. Gotta protect your hands. Because those wires eat right into your hand.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got your nice gash already queued up. Now, as Ben is wrapping these thicker wires around these tuning pins down here, these are the, of course, lower pitch notes. You'll notice that these actually run over some of the thinner wires. This is a process that's patented by Steinway. It's called overstringing. And these strings going over these wires create a richer sound in tone and a louder sound for amplification. It also centralizes the strings, putting all the strings in a more confined, centralized space.
Okay, we've got the rim, the soundboard, and the iron plate, the strings, and about 1,000 other parts. But one thing is missing, one very obvious thing.
Oh, keys! Keys, look! So we've ripped the 88s out of this grand piano. What's going on here, Lou? The goal of the whole exercise is to bounce the hammer once and only once. And so there are a bunch of levers in here that give you mechanical advantage to throw the hammer very fast, launch it. Second problem, though, is you don't want the hammer to come back down and bounce off the mechanism up against the string a second time. You get a bing-bing sound.
Yeah, you only want to hit the string once.
Well, look, watch this little guy back here. This is what's called a back check. When you press the key once, it catches the hammer on the way back. Look, I let a little pressure off the key. Look what happened to the hammer.
This catcher releases a little.
It released. So this gives you the fast repeat that you need for some pieces. So, and that
The piano will undergo 4 tuning processes to achieve the perfect sound. But first, what every delicate instrument needs, a good pounding.
Sounds great. It's kind of like 1,000 children banging on the piano at the same time. What really does that do? Except make a lot of noise and everyone in the place very uncomfortable.
It plays in the instrument. It's as if you had 1 million children playing this for days and days, so everything gets worked in. Things become more comfortable, like an old pair of shoes.
Okay, so how, or like a catcher's mitt, basically.
Well, like a
we're
catcher,
basically
exactly,
working some
like a
oil
catcher.
into it, and we're going to go
Working
out in the
it in.
backyard, we're going to play, we're just going to catch some balls just to work that glove in.
Our piano looks like a Steinway, but it doesn't really sound like one yet. So from here on out, the most important tool you can have is your ear.
We should say, for the record, this is a part of the process that Lou and I are not allowed to do.
So we just watch. This is a process called voicing. Several skilled artisans here repeatedly adjust the tune and the tone of the sound.
You'll notice that it needs... The first thing what I do is just listen to it and then fit the strings to the hammer.
Timmy Bekarovic spots the notes that are too dull or too bright.
See, over here is so bright and it dulls out a bit here, so I will mark it. This is kind of bright.
To change the tone of the sound, he has to change the shape of the hammer.
Here goes the felt on the high side of the hammer.
Oh, so he's just filing it down like you would a fingernail.
That's it, very smoothly. And I'd rather take off again because you can't put on again. I don't want to ruin the hammer.
Okay.
So you do it step by step, letter by letter.
Now you're actually puncturing, you're putting holes in the felt.
Yes.
That does what?
It sims the tone down. It's not so bright.
Okay.
It's softening the bell so when it hits the string, it doesn't vibrate as roughly.
So the tools in your arsenal here are sanding and pinpricks and what else?
Forget the steroids.
Steroids, right. The juice. Now that liquid does what? Hardens the felt?
Hardens the felt. It will bring up the tone.
So you have 2 hours to voice this piano.
Yes.
With us here, that's going to take, about 17 hours. Let's see if we can stretch this process a little.
See, right here we would need to apply more juice.
In the 2 hours he devotes to every piano, Timmy will make as many passes over these keys as he can. Now, what should it sound like? Yeah, you can really hear the difference.
Yeah. It's a different instrument.
After countless rounds of toning, the piano's voice is almost complete.
It's really remarkable.
And then there's Wally.
I mean, this is really where Steinway becomes a Steinway.
For all the tuning and toning that goes into creating the Steinway sound, no piano goes out these factory doors without going through Wally Boot first.
Out of place next to the two notes.
Wait a minute, that's out of place? Now, you knew that note was off just by listening. You don't have any machines hooked up to it.
No, it's with my
there's no
ears,
electronics.
yeah,
just
no.
using Wally Boots here.
Yep.
I mean, how do you get to be the man who says,
You gotta work here 44 years.
oh, you
Start
got
from the bottom and work your way up.
Did you ever think 44 years later you would be really the last guy to touch the keyboard
No.
and to call it a Steinway?
No, I didn't know where we're going, but,
That's quite a journey.
and in the last couple of years I took piano lessons, and
No.
it's,
Last couple of years?
Yeah.
What do you mean last couple of years? You've been playing a lot longer than a
About-
couple of years.
last 3 years I had a
Really?
piano tuner give me lessons every 15 minutes a week,
Okay.
and I got plenty of piano to practice on.
Yeah, you do. So you basically get to practice all day.
Don't tell my boss that.
Will you take us out?